You remember that old game you used to play at kids' parties? You know, the one where they play the record and then all of a sudden, whoop, the record stops and you got to scrounge for a chair, and they always make to where there's one less chair than everybody there. And then one person has to get out of the game and go sit down. And then everybody else starts circling the remaining chairs. And so everybody's wanting to make sure that when the music stops, they're not left without a chair. Are you kind of feeling that way about your retirement with the market, the way it's done the last, 6-8 weeks? Well, if you're within 5 years of retirement, you need to listen to this show, because we're going to address specific things to make sure you're not left standing without a chair when the music stops.
Welcome to the Ask Brad Show. Be prepared to hear ideas, concepts, and strategies that may challenge the way you were taught to think about saving and investing for retirement. It's time to roll up our sleeves and get to it. And now, the host of the Ask Brad Show, here's Brad Williams.
You know, as I opened, I mentioned the old game of musical chairs. And you know, so many of those games as kids were so much fun, but you know, you were stressed out. You didn't want to be the one left standing, but you know, ultimately there's only going to be one person left, and they were going to be the winner. Well, you know, retirement doesn't have to be that way. There doesn't have to be only one winner. But the sad fact of the matter is, when you look at statistics, that only about 5 people out of 100 are truly financially independent when they retire. You know, when you think about the great opportunities in this country, and people work so hard, we're probably the hardest working people in the world. And I wouldn't doubt that a bit. We put in longer hours than the rest of the world. You know, they have riots over in France for more vacation. So we've got to look at things for our retirement differently now. You know, we're coming out of a long bull market, and the market cycles. And anybody who's come in to see me, you know, I speak a lot on market history and trends and cycles. And I think that's important to look at, because when you retire in a cycle is really going to drive some of the things you do. But today I want to talk about 10 steps you need to take before you retire. And especially if you're within 5 years of retiring, because if you look at retirement like climbing a mountain, you know, that climb up the mountain, that's your accumulation phase. And I like to use this analogy because I think it's quite descriptive. So you're working, you're putting money away, you know, you're doing all the right things, putting in your 401k, building up your Social Security, all these things. And you get to the peak of the mountain, and that peak of the mountain, that's your retirement. You've gotten to that pinnacle where you've had a lifetime of hard work. You've raised your kids, hopefully paid off your house, done some great things, maybe sent the kids to college. Now they've got their families and they're doing good, and you're proud of them. And you're right at that pinnacle now, and retirement starts. Well, you've now gone from the accumulation phase to the distribution phase of retirement. And you know what, folks? All the rules changed. As much as you hate to think about that, the rules have changed. Your income is going to be dependent on what you do with what you've accumulated to this point in your life. Yes, you got Social Security, and maybe you're lucky enough to have a pension, but making sure you take care of what you've accumulated in that nest egg is very, very important. And I often cite the fact that there's a stage in the middle there that's often overlooked. You know, we got the accumulation stage and the distribution phase, climbing up the mountain, going down the mountain. But there's a preservation phase during that transition that a lot of people forget about. That's when you start de-risking your portfolio. That's when you start changing your focus from growth to income. And in fact, that's what my practice focuses on, is income-oriented investments and looking at how do you create the streams of income that give you the flexibility to do the things you want to do in life. And so we're going to talk about those things today, and we're going to cover a lot of things that I think you'll find interesting and hopefully informative. that will help you in that transition period, that preservation period where you're making the decisions into retirement to make that retirement much more stress-free and happy. So when we come back, we're going to talk about that.
You know, Americans are notorious for overspending when the holiday season rolls around, and while that may be good for the economy, in the short term, it often ends up being bad for household budgets. Overindulging a bit on spending during the holiday season doesn't need to create hardships as long as you know your broader financial situation is in good shape. That's why we've created a holiday gift for you. It's our year-end financial planning checklist, and it's absolutely free. Key items on this financial checklist include taxes, charitable donations, estate planning, health insurance, your risk assessment, goals, and so much more. It's our holiday gift to you, your very own year-end financial planning checklist, and it's absolutely free. So call now, 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048.
All right, now when we open, I spent some time talking about the retirement mountain and, the accumulation phase, the distribution phase, but the preservation phase. But as we look at 10 steps to take before you retire, I think the number one is, what does retirement mean to you? I mean, what do you truly want to do in retirement? You don't want to just go away. You want to be productive. Now, a lot of people, I've got clients that continue to do consulting. They may work part-time at their job. There's a lot of highly skilled people in this town, and got a lot of them as my clients who are in high demand, and they can control their hours. And that's good if you start positioning yourself in that way. Now, some people aren't that way. It's, they're either working or they're not. You might find a part-time job. You might find a way to begin turning your hobby into something that will generate income for you. So that number one thing is, what do you want your retirement to be? Is it about spending time with your family? Is it about spending time with your spouse, maybe traveling? And one caution I would say, I've got one client that really worked hard to make sure that they had plenty in retirement, that him and his wife had plenty in retirement. And then right as he finally got to it, he put it off several times. His wife got sick and they never got to enjoy it. So when you're preparing for retirement, don't overdo it. Look at what you need, but don't think you got to overpad it and end up missing some of the things you've worked for so hard in your life. Because I think that's something he really regrets, is that, he wanted to be so secure that he gave up something he'll never get back. So I think the second thing, make sure you have an emergency fund, because you don't know what's going to happen. And that emergency fund can encompass many things. What I'm finding more and more is that a lot of my clients are taking care of grandkids, or maybe their kids in one way or another. And maybe their kids haven't done a good job and they're handling their grandkids, or, something happened in their lives where they're not there. So, having the money to do that as well as doing what you want to do in retirement is important. But I think it all goes back to the first one, which, determine what retirement means to you, what family needs you're going to have, what financial needs those are going to put on you. The third thing would be, if you're thinking about staying in your house and you still have a mortgage and you're wondering, hey, maybe now might be a good time to refinance if you haven't already done so, or maybe you want to change the financing that you're doing, you do it before you quit working. I think with interest rates going up, a lot of people probably already refinanced, but just make sure that, if you're going to do that, that you want to do that now. And number 4, and I think this is probably the most important, is you want a detailed financial plan. And that should encompass Social Security. When should you take it? When should your spouse take it? What are the ramifications of those decisions? How you should take your pension if you have a pension. Do you need a survivor benefit? Does that make sense to get that? Where's your income going to come from? Are you going to be taking income from your portfolio? Have you readjusted your portfolio to be providing income to you and not just growth? Because when we get back, I'm going to talk about the difference between a growth advisor and an income advisor. So stay tuned, folks.
At Brad Williams Financial Services, we believe in innovative thinking, and we're not afraid to challenge conventional methods in our approach to managing, investing, and preserving wealth. To learn more about Brad Williams Financial Services or to set up a complimentary review,
call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. No one needs to tell you we live in an era of financial uncertainty. As a thank you just for listening to our program today, we're offering listeners who call in or log on a complimentary copy of the new book, Return on Principle, 7 Core Values to Protect Your Money in Good Times and Bad, from best-selling author and financial coach David Scranton. Filled with in-depth analysis from financial overprotection to financial fearlessness, Return on Principle tackles them all. Steve Forbes says David Scranton offers perspectives investors should not ignore in these turbulent times. Return on Principle takes baby boomers through a journey of discovery, not blame. For your complimentary copy, call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. Or visit us online at AskBradShow.com. That's AskBradShow.com.
All right, welcome back. And, right before the break, what I talked about was having a full financial plan and looking at Social Security, looking at your pensions, looking at where you're going to be getting your income, but also addressing your portfolio, because you've got to be able to know what your portfolio is going to do for you. Many advisors today are really just financial salespeople. You come in the office, you do a profile, takes you 10 minutes to do the profile, and it says either you're, conservative, moderate, or aggressive. And then they have a cookie cutter set of funds for each one, wherever you fall in, and you transfer the money in. The next day, it's all invested in whatever those funds are. I would say you probably got a financial salesperson. And as I mentioned mountain climbing in the beginning, when people climb Everest, for example, and let me give you a detail about Everest. The majority of all deaths on mountains like Everest don't happen on the ascent. They happen on the descent. It's not going up the mountain. In our discussion today, that's the accumulation phase. It's the coming down the mountain, the distribution phase. That's when people make mistakes. Their resources have been exhausted. They're tired. Maybe they're injured, kind of like a retirement could be. And they start making mistakes, and it oftentimes costs them their lives. So a lot of people, in fact, I think on Mount Everest, you have to have a Sherpa to go up with you. They hire a Sherpa who is that guide that knows the ins and outs of the mountain, and he guides them up and he guides them down. And that's the key. He guides them up and he guides them down. Unfortunately, in our industry, you typically specialize in one or the other. You're either a growth-oriented advisor, you have clients that are, 30, 40, 50, 60, maybe even older. And your main goal is growing their money. And when people start talking about, should I get more conservative? Well, they say, yeah, we'll get in more conservative stocks. And they're still in the market. And there's a universe of income-oriented investments that a lot of people don't look at, that are largely unavailable in mutual funds. And those are worth looking at. And so that Sherpa should be able to take you there and have those in the portfolio. But again, so many advisors are financial salespeople, and they're not Sherpas, and their expertise is not making sure that you don't run out of money. And when I say that, I'm not talking about putting your money in a variable annuity that has an income rider, and in the event that all your money's gone, you still have income. That's not what I'm talking about. Variable annuities can be very expensive, and although those income riders sound pretty good, it's kind of like a variable annuity is a tool that can be valuable in the right hands and for the right reasons. But when you're a retiree, it may not be the best choice. And of course, that's something to be determined by your particular situation. So I'm not going to make a blanket statement on that. But think about this. So variable annuity gives you access to the market through the sub-accounts, and you have growth in there. Well, you also have what could be a lot of high fees. But what often happens with a financial salesperson is when you come in and they're used to using these variable annuities, they say, I'm concerned about the downside. Oh, okay. Well, we can just throw this income rider on. That way, if for some reason the market goes down, you'll at least be guaranteed this certain amount of income when you retire. So you'll have some safety there. Okay. Well, it might work for some, but when you really look at the details, a lot of people find that may not be for them. It's kind of like going to a Porsche dealership. When you're looking for a family vehicle, a crossover or minivan or something like that, and you go in the Porsche dealership and you say, hey, I need a vehicle. He says, hey, we got this great sports car. Well, I'm going to be driving a lot in the snow. Oh, okay. Well, for an extra charge, we can put these snow tires in the trunk and they'll be ready for you. Okay. Well, that might work. He said, but I may be going over some rough ground and all, and I'm afraid it might roll over. Oh, okay. Well, for this extra fee, we can throw a roll bar on there. And then if you roll over, you're going to be all right. Okay. Well, so what have you got? You've taken a sports car and you've added on these things that really didn't belong, and they're supposed to make you feel safe. When in reality, maybe another vehicle might be the best thing. If you're worried about losing your money, there may be other ways, because a variable annuity is going to be just like the market. It's going to have ups and downs. So when you're looking at income tools, what I'm talking about is not really a variable annuity with an income rider. I'm talking about other things. These are a universe of income-oriented investments that I help my clients with. Now, if you're not sure whether your portfolio is set up for income in retirement and that you're in that preservation phase, that 5-year period before retirement, you need to give me a call, 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. And we can talk about your thoughts and even provide you a free 1-hour consultation to do a brief analysis and show you, are you on track or not? That's 844-343-6048. So getting back to a detailed retirement plan, I think that's important. And that's one of the things that I work with my clients on, is creating a kind of a financial GPS, I like to call it. Because when you look at traveling, and I've used this analogy on my show before, when you're flying, most of the time that plane's off course, and you pilots out there know what I'm talking about. And that GPS figures out, the turbulence, the tailwinds, the cross currents, the weather changes, and it makes sure that when you drift off course, it pulls that nose right back on course. So it's making the small course corrections when they're needed instead of waiting until they get to be big ones. And oftentimes when people come in to see me the first time, maybe they had an advisor they haven't seen in 2 or 3, 5 years. Put them in some investments that they're not even sure how they're doing, not even sure whether they're appropriate for them. Maybe they get a Christmas card every now and then. But to sit down and do several reviews a year and make sure they're on course and make the subtle course correction, that may not be the kind of service they're getting. And if that's the case, then that might indicate that you're dealing with a financial salesperson and not so much an advisor. So having a detailed financial plan is important. And number 6, part of that plan is your savings drawdown strategy. You want to make sure that you build plans in there to make it last. Because, a good analogy for that would be, if you don't plan right with your investments, your retirement could be like a 30-year mortgage. I know my grandfather actually had more years than that in retirement, but you think about that. You buy a house, you get a mortgage, you get a 30-year mortgage, And then you make that first payment and very little of the principal's paid, most of it's interest. All right. And then each time you make another payment, just a little bit more principal's paid. And then when you finally get to the end of it, at the end of 30 years, lo and behold, that $300,000 debt that you had 30 years ago is gone. And hey, that's great. You got your deed and you're in retirement. House is paid off. That's great. Now, the problem a lot of people have is when they look at drawdown strategies, and this, I'm going to do a show on the 4% rule that I think has a lot of holes in it, because even Morningstar has changed that to 2.8% in this turbulent environment. And what that means is that there used to be an old adage, if you have $1 million, you can draw 4% out of it. And that's 40 grand a year before taxes. And you got a reasonable chance, something like 90% chance of not running out of money before you die. That's changed now with the way the markets and interest rates are. And even Morningstar has recently come out and said it's 2.8. So think about that, 2.8%. But getting back to the mortgage analogy, you had a 30-year mortgage, you paid it off. But what if you're taking your income from growth and you're slowly drawing down your principal? Well, it ends up being like a 30-year mortgage in reverse if you haven't planned it right. And then boom, you get toward the end of your retirement and there's no money left. But then again, look at where we are now in the market. What if, and we've had one in 2000 and one in 2008, 50% drawdown. That changes that whole withdrawal rate totally. So think about that. And when we get back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the 10 steps you need to take before you retire.
Thanks for listening to our show today. In retirement, you only get one chance to get it right, and we know that proper information leads to informed decisions. And that's why we hold free informational workshops in our area every month. Topics like Social Security, RMDs, the latest retirement tax strategies, IRAs, estate planning, and so much more. For dates and times of the next free workshop in your area, just pick up the phone. Give us a call today. Call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048.
All right, now going back, we talked about climbing the retirement mountain. We've talked about having a financial plan. We've talked about income strategies and why, you don't want to turn your retirement into a 30-year mortgage in reverse, and why that's something you got to look at. Number 7 is you may want to look at long-term care insurance or long-term care coverage in one of numerous ways it's available. I've done shows on long-term care. You can go back, go to the AskBradShow.com and listen to those. I don't want to spend this time going over that. But planning for healthcare expenses is very important, and I think it's something you want to do. I've also done some shows on estate planning. A lot of my clients have used a great law firm that's what they specialize in, to put together trusts and wills and powers of attorneys and why those are necessary. Putting together that part of your plan is really important too. Number 9, you need to check and recheck your plans. And what I mean by that is a plan is something that changes with the environment. There's an old military adage that no battle plan survives first contact. You might say that about retirements too, because things change. If you retired in 2009, you had an upward market for a good while. If you're retiring now, you may not be so sure what it's going to do. But having a written plan, going back to number 5, is really critical. And what I mean by written plan is not just a general outline. I'm talking about something that details everything. And if that's something you want to talk about, if you don't have a written plan, if you feel like you've been dealing with a financial salesperson and not a financial advisor, and you're looking for a retirement Sherpa, then give us a call, 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. Now, we're going to go into the last one, the 10th step that you need to take in retirement. And that is, you need to adjust your retirement financial plan to compensate for risk and longevity. And so that's where we get back into, are you investing for growth? Or are you investing for income? Because the formula I write on the board in my office all the time when I'm meeting with clients, just to remind them, is TR equals G plus I. Total return equals growth plus income. And a lot of people, when they think income, they think, okay, well, I got some bond funds in there. That's good for income. Well, bond funds probably not going to be the best place going forward, because we've come out of a period of low interest rates, of declining interest rates. And now we're heading back into a period of increasing interest rates. And during those periods, the value of that bond, when you buy an individual bond and you hold it to maturity, then the only risk is that you're not getting as much return as other people are getting. But when you get to the end of it, you get your money back. When you buy a bond in a bond fund, and unfortunately, a lot of financial salespeople, when they get that stock bond portfolio mix, they use bond funds. When we're in a period of rising interest rates, bond funds can lose value because the value of the bond goes down as interest rates go up. So if somebody has a 3% bond and the new bonds are 5 and they want to sell that bond early, then they're going to take a loss on that bond because other people can get a comparable bond for a higher interest rate. Well, that value of that bond is calculated in that bond fund. So that's a discussion that if you're heavily into bond funds, we may want to have. If you're not sure about how to position yourself for income and how you should be defensive in your portfolio going in retirement, call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. We can set up a 1-hour consultation. We can even set up a 15-minute phone consultation. Just give us a call, 844-343-6048.
At Brad Williams Financial Services, we understand the struggles that families and business owners face today. We want to help you develop, implement, and monitor a strategy that's designed to address your personal objectives and individual situation. To learn more about Brad Williams Financial Services or to set up a complimentary review,
call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048.
Investing in the stock market these days is like riding a roller coaster. Leaving a place of safety, get on the coaster, hear the clickety-clack as you experience anticipation climbing to the top of the hill, followed by sheer panic as you plummet back to the earth, hoping you stay on track. You might be brave enough to repeat the process several times, going up and down, but never achieving higher highs and accomplishing nothing but anticipation followed by fear. The stock market has been doing this same ride of volatility with no real growth. Proper education, though, can help you find a better way to grow your money during these times.
Call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048.
Imagine trying to direct a friend or loved one from out of state to your home for the holidays, but describing the roads to get to your house as they were 50 years ago. Do you think they'd run into problems along the way? Well, guess what? Your retirement presents the same challenges. Challenges you need an up-to-date roadmap to overcome. You know, every day, the American public's being force-fed investing advice from every direction. And, you know, some of it's spot on, but a lot of it's advice that made sense 30, 40, even 50 years ago. And some of it's just flat out wrong. If you follow this bad or wrong advice, it could prove to be an irreversible financial disaster to you. This is Brad Williams and the Ask Brad Show. And today, we're going to set the record straight on what's fact and what's fiction and the most common retirement myths to make sure your retirement roadmap is up to date. Now, you know, one of the things I do on my show is covering things that people believe are true but aren't. You know, you get bombarded with the media, newspapers, magazines, articles, TV shows, radio shows, online blogs. And, you know, here, now that we're in the holidays, even your crazy uncle that's always got the best advice on how to make $1 million, but he doesn't have a penny. You know, there's endless advice on how to claim Social Security, how to claim Medicare, you know, the best ways to take money from your IRA or 401k, how to be diversified, you name it. I mean, you can turn on the TV and you're going to find it. And, you know, it can be really confusing. It make you almost want to turn everything off. Because how do you know what's right and what's wrong? Well, today we're going to talk about the 7 investing myths that could derail your retirement. And from my 32 years of experience being a financial planner, we're going to cover things like traditional rule of thumb for claiming Social Security that could cost you thousands. Tax policies that causes retirees to needlessly overpay the IRS every year. One-size-fits-all strategy on how much you should withdraw on retirement accounts that could really send you to the poorhouse and more. All these myths that people are using and going by today. Now, the first myth of our 7 retirement planning myths that can cost you a small fortune is that Medicare is going to cover your health needs. A lot of people think, wow, you know, I'm getting ready to turn 65. I'm getting ready to hit that magical Medicare age where now my medical costs are going to go down. Well, I think you may have a rude awakening. The latest estimates say out-of-pocket spending for the average 65-year-old couple, that means you're spending it, not Medicare, could go past the $400,000 mark in their retirement lifetime. Now, let me ask you this. Do you have a separate retirement account with $400,000 in it, or that can have $400,000 in it to pay those? Most people can't. Now, mind you, this takes into account Medicare premiums, supplemental insurance premiums, deductibles, any copays, and anything that's not covered. Because, you know, a lot of people think Medicare covers a majority of the health care costs, and it's just not true. One insurance company recently came out and said Medicare will cover about 60% of health care costs. So you got the other 40 in your ballpark. So what we look at today from Medicare data indicates that you're about $7,566 per person in health care costs per year on average. So that's about $15,000 for a couple in their 70s. Wow. Think about that doubling at the age of 95 or older. So you got to start thinking about those numbers. If you're a married couple and both live to late 80s to early 90s, you're talking about some real money there. You know, a study by Hewitt Associates, which I thought was kind of interesting, says healthcare expenses can cost retirees 20% of their annual income. Think about that, 20% for healthcare. Most people think their biggest line item is taxes. You know, might be that healthcare costs are going to beat that out. And then we got to start thinking about the Medicare trust fund. Because, folks, we got to admit there's issues there. So may not affect current retirees in tremendous ways, but meaning it may not be there for the younger folks in the way we have it. But there's still going to be challenges there.
You know, Americans are notorious for overspending when the holiday season rolls around, and while that may be good for the economy, in the short term, it often ends up being bad for household budgets. Overindulging a bit on spending during the holiday season doesn't need to create hardships as long as you know your broader financial situation is in good shape. That's why we've created a holiday gift for you. It's our year-end financial planning checklist, and it's absolutely free. Key items on this financial checklist include taxes, charitable donations, estate planning, health insurance, your risk assessment, goals, and so much more. It's our holiday gift to you, your very own year-end financial planning checklist, and it's absolutely free. So call now, 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. Have you missed any of today's show? Would you like to listen to past shows? We've got you covered 24/7. Visit AskBradShow.com. That's AskBradShow.com.
We're discussing Medicare in retirement. And when we look at healthcare costs, we do have the typical medical costs, and then we got healthcare related to long-term care. And according to Forbes, nearly 70% of all people, that's 7 in 10 folks, who live to age 65 will require some type of long-term care. And the key is not whether you have insurance or not, but how you're going to pay for it. I sat down with one couple this week who had quite a bit of assets, and they were concerned about buying long-term care insurance. And I've done shows on that, and I'll do other shows on that. That's not the focus of today. But in their case, I was showing them how they truly had enough to self-insure if they desired that. Because Medicare, contrary to what a lot of people believe, does not pay for long-term care costs. They're going to pay for a portion of them if you go from the hospital to a nursing home. But for the most part, it's not going to pay for them. And private room, you could cost up to $8,000 a month. I mean, we're a little lower in Alabama, but still, even if it's $6,000, that's $6,000 a month. So, that's something you got to take care of. Now, when you look at inflation on that, boy, that can have a real chunk of change out of your retirement. So, following up the 7 myths on the first one on Medicare, it's not free. Your healthcare expenses outside of taxes, one of those is going to be the largest one. So when you look at healthcare costs, Medicare is, that's a big deal, folks. And there's 4 parts of Medicare. You got the Part A, which is your medical insurance, Part B, and Part C, and then you got Medicare Advantages. And again, I'm not going to make this a show about Medicare, but you got to enroll when you're 65. And if you're on Social Security early, you don't need to. They're going to cover that, but that comes right out of your Social Security check. And, you're going to see it before you get that. So when you're calculating your Social Security benefits, you need to make sure that you've adjusted for the fact that Medicare premiums are going to come out of that. Next thing is, do you have enough money in the stock market? You got too much, too little? How do you calculate, your retirement income? So when we look at all that, it's important to calculate all these things we're going to talk about today. So one of the issues we've got is taking a look at having a plan. You got to have a written plan. It's the old adage, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And what we'd like to offer to our listeners today is the 5-step retirement action plan. We're going to make this available to you at no cost. Just dial 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. So if you'll call in, get our 5-step retirement action plan, no cost, no obligation. And, we're going to make it simple. Look at things, 5 critical pillars of investing, reducing biggest expenses in retirement, which are taxes outside of medical care. If you keep taxes low, you keep more money in your pocket. And it's what sources you're getting your income from that are important. In it, we'll address some unconventional strategies to get the most out of Medicare and Social Security benefits. So you're not going to pay anything for this analysis, and no sales pitch, no products for sale. We're going to offer that to the first 10 callers at 844-343-6048. Now, today, again, we're talking about the 7 retirement planning myths that could cost you a small fortune. When you look at all the media, all the newspaper, TVs, online blogs, everybody wanting to give advice. There's a lot of myths out there. One of the biggest myths I encounter on a regular basis is what's called the 4% rule. And this is something that can cause you to go broke. And then we're going to talk a little bit about tax benefits. But myth number 2, the 4% rule. Used to be that experts would say, well, you save $1 million, take 4% out, you have a reasonable chance of not outliving your money. Well, that's not really the case anymore. In fact, Morningstar over the last couple of years has revised that to 2.8%. Now think about that. You got $1 million saved. You're going to withdraw 2.8% to get you about a 90% chance of not outliving your money. But folks, that's before taxes. You know, some of these old rule of thumbs can get you into trouble. And we've been through a period of relatively low inflation. Don't know that it's going to stay that way. We've had record low interest rates. Stock market has been at record highs. Volatility is now back in the market. You know, last year we went through a very interesting period of low volatility, and now it's back again, which if you've paid attention in the last couple of months, you've seen that. So you got longevity you got to worry about. If you withdraw 4% a year, that could leave you pretty much high and dry. You've got sequence of return risk, which I've talked about on many shows, which if you retire in a bear market, it's going to be a real impact on your portfolio because it's when you get your returns and when you have the losses in your portfolio that really matters whether your money is going to last or not. Then when we look at the 4% rule, you got your minimum distributions from your retirement accounts because in reality, that's a major tax consequence that the IRS is going to force you to take those withdrawals, which in the first year amount to roughly about 3.8%. So it's key to learn to control your taxes by planning ahead. And if you're over 50, it's time to start today because taxes are a huge impact in retirement, and having a tax efficient strategy is going to save you a lot of money. And if you don't have one, if you're just assuming what everybody else assumes, it could cost you a lot. And let's talk about tax rates. What's the future going to look like? We got $21 trillion of debt. The Trump tax plan passed this year, but 7 years from now, it expires. So what is Congress going to do then? Well, it depends on who's in charge of Congress. So when you look at RMDs, they could increase your Social Security taxability of benefits. But controlling taxes is critically important in this day and age because the IRS is just waiting for you to retire so that you can start taking that minimum distribution. They can start getting some of that tax money that they've deferred up until now. So I want you to give us a call for your retirement tax saving action plan. And if you call 844-343-6048, we can tell you how to get that. And this is going to help you put more money in your pocket and show you the different ways of taking distributions that will help you reduce your taxes and get more efficient income. So like I said, the IRS is just waiting for you to retire because they cannot wait to get a hold of those taxes that they've been missing. So call right now and get your retirement tax saving action plan. To learn if you qualify, just call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048.
Thanks for listening to the Retirement Income Doctor, Brad Williams. And right now, we'd like to offer to you a free copy of the book, Return on Principle, the 7 core values on how to protect your money in good times and bad. To receive your copy of this very powerful book, Return on Principle, call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. Be one of the first 3 callers right now.
Welcome back. You know, claiming Social Security benefits, generating income, reducing taxes, asset allocation, diversification, risk management. Boy, that sounds like a lot of balls to juggle, doesn't it? I mean, there are so many things that makes your head spin. This is Brad Williams in the Ask Brad Show, and I want to thank you for joining me today. And today we're talking about the 7 retirement planning myths or untruths. And our next segment, we're going to dispel the one-size-fits-all strategy of asset allocation, plus how a traditional rule of thumb for claiming Social Security could also trigger a bigger problem with higher taxes and Medicare premiums. And so, everybody talks about 60-40 or 70-30 stock bond portfolio. Well, there's more to it than that. Myth number 4 is the 100 minus your age myth of the stock to bond mix, and that's the way to go. And it's not that the rule of 100 doesn't work. It's just looking at only stocks and bonds to do that is the myth. So what that's saying is that as you get older, that you should reduce your exposure to stocks and put them into bonds. And with people living longer than ever, inflation is going to be one of the greatest threats that they face. Things are going to cost more. Stocks have proven to be one of the best inflation hedges available. So when you have higher prices, what do you think they are? I mean, when we look at what we pay for everything, about the only thing that has really remained reasonable is gasoline. So the problem we have in that old myth is that we've been in a period of a bond market rally for about the last 3 years. We've had a period of generally falling interest rates, and now we're entering into a period of rising interest rates. And what's going to happen is that's going to impact the bond market. When you buy a bond, an individual bond, you have 2 guarantees: return of your money and a set rate of return on your money every year. Barring any unforeseen chances, that the company goes out of business, you're at the top of the creditor list. But the problem is most people buy their bonds in bond funds. And bond funds don't offer those 2 same guarantees. You don't own the bonds when you own a bond fund. You own shares in the bond fund. The bond fund owns the bonds. So if people are looking in that diversification and using bond funds in a period of rising interest rates, you're going to get some surprises. And if that's a concern for you, then that's something we need to talk about. So give us a call, 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. And we can talk about how the traditional allocation of 60-40 bonds may be problematic in some ways. So that's 844-343-6048. Now, also talked about sequence of returns risk. And when you have too much exposure in the stock market, then that can impact that. Because again, when you have down years in the wrong part of retirement and the up years in the wrong part, it makes a lot of difference in whether you're going to run out of money or not. Now, when we look at our grandfather, I mentioned grandfather, they built a lot of their retirement on Social Security. They had bonds and they had CDs. Well, CDs paid a lot more. Life expectancies were shorter. Inflation was fairly tame, and interest rates were much higher. Well, that's not the challenges facing you today. Unless you have a whole lot of money, and I mean millions, when you look at a 30-year time horizon, because my grandfather lived for like 33 years after he retired, and inflation is eating through that purchasing power, that is going to create a lot of risk, and that's a risk you don't need to take. So finding the right mix for a portfolio is very critical. And everyone has a different situation. You can't go to an investment salesperson and say, hey, here's my money. And then they go, okay, you conservative, moderate, or aggressive. And then they put you in that one portfolio and expect that to succeed. The times for that are over. So you got to take a customized approach to look at personal needs and personal purpose. I've talked about purpose-driven investment plan. When people come in to see me, I do see some that are doing the right thing, but I see a lot of people that are driving on those old roads we talked about. So myth number 5 is, as I mentioned earlier, are you going to receive the amount stated on your Social Security statement? Every year you get the ability to pull up your statement and look at it, and it tells you how much you're going to get in retirement. But that's before Medicare premiums. And it also is going to be impacted by what choices you make in your Social Security choices. So that's a key thing. I've seen differences between, $50,000, $100,000 in different claiming strategies. I think Forbes magazine came out with a article that as much as $10 billion is left on the table unclaimed every year with Social Security because people don't make the right choices. We've also got to look at the Social Security Trust Fund. If you read your statement's front page, it's going to tell you why. Now, if you're right at retirement, probably not going to affect you too much. I know my 26 and 24-year-old daughters, they're going to need another plan because Social Security, I can't see how it will be the same way then as it is today. So that is a key aspect. So Social Security is one of those key things. And if you're not sure about your Social Security, give us a call, 844-343-6048, and we can do our Social Security timing report and let you know when the optimum time might be to take your Social Security, because there's many different claiming strategies, and all of them affect things like Medicare premiums, taxes, spousal benefits. So it's important you make the right choice up front. Just give us a call, 844-343-6048, and ask for our Social Security timing report, and we'll tell you how you can get one. No cost, no obligation. Myth number 6 is you won't live that long. Well, think about people around you. Are you seeing people that are making it into their 90s? I know I have several clients that have. So you've got to plan that into your retirement. You know, one of the things I do for clients is do a financial plan. And more I'm having people say, you know, I want mine not to be 87 or 89, but 95. So think about if you hit your 100th birthday, are you going to be able to afford to live? You know, the fastest growing population age groups, the 85 plus. So think about that. Longevity means that you're going to have expenses for longer. Inflation will be more of an impact to you. And if you're going through a time of market turbulence, you got to figure that in there with sequence of return risk. So looking and having a plan is critical. And if you've not sat down and done a written plan, give us a call at 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048. We'll tell you how you can get a plan. Takes into account your Social Security, sequence of return risk, all the things we're talking about today, and puts it into a concise document that acts as kind of a financial GPS. Myth number 7 is you'll need less money in retirement. You know, that old thing, well, when I retire, I'm going to be in a lower tax bracket. I heard somebody say once, you know, if I retire in a lower tax bracket, then maybe I did something wrong. Well, you know, that's one way to look at it, because you want to make sure you have the amount of income you need to live the way you want to live when you retire. I have some clients that build in some pretty substantial vacations into their financial GPS, and that's important to them. You know, it's all about your purpose. It's really all about your purpose. You want to make sure that you have the right income for the lifestyle that you want to live. And you also need to factor in longevity. You need the right amount of income to make it through retirement without any road bumps. So when I look at that, when I show people the graphs of their income flows and their assets, it's an eye opener for them, because sometimes, you know, you see this look of relief. Oh, wow, I didn't know we could do this. And other times, we're not going to be able to do what we want to do. Do you know which one it is? That's something you need to know before you retire. So call 844-343-6048 and ask how you can get your personalized financial analysis. That's 844-343-6048. So today we talked about the 7 retirement myths, and I hope that's been helpful. Now, before we close today, hope you all have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and we look forward to talking to you soon.
That's all the time we have for today. To learn more about Brad Williams Financial Services or to set up a complimentary review,
call 844-343-6048. That's 844-343-6048.
Investment advisory services offered through Sound Income Strategies, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. Brad Williams Financial Services and Sound Income Strategies, LLC are not associated entities.